In this video, we're going to go ahead and go over a few geometry properties. Even though the concept or the properties are the same as the ones up here with algebra, we're going to now use segments and angles to represent them. Okay, and all the properties that are up here still apply to geometry properties as well. I'm just giving you some examples of how these properties play out in geometry. So the reflexive property, as you learned up here, is kind of one of those duh ones. One thing is equal to the same thing. So for example, down here, the reflexive property says that segment AB is equal to segment AB, and angle A is related or congruent to angle A. Now, I mentioned to you in the last video that that seems so easy. Why would we even need to say that? And the reason for that is because we are going to be learning how to prove that triangles are congruent. And sometimes two triangles are going to be stuck together. Something like this. And there's different ways of proving that that triangles are congruent, but one way we can prove them is that all three of their sides are congruent. So if I was going to prove that these two triangles are congruent, I would have to prove three things. I would have to prove that angle B is congruent to, segment AB is congruent to segment CB on this triangle. I would have to prove that AD is congruent to CD. And then when I get to the third side, you should notice that the third side is actually shared by both of these triangles. Right there in the middle is where it's at. It's shared by both. If it's shared by both, you still have to be able to say that this side is congruent to this side on each triangle. So basically, when you write this, you're writing the reflexive property. But what you're actually telling us about this triangle is that this side is on this triangle, triangle BAD, and this side is also on this triangle, triangle BCD. You're basically saying we have a shared side, okay? But I have to list it separately because I'm actually referring to or approaching it or relating it to two different triangles. And then the same thing would be true if I have a shared angle, right? So angle D here and angle D here, okay? Or angle B here or angle B here, okay? So that's the idea behind the reflexive property. We'll learn more about that when you get to proving congruent triangles. Okay. So the symmetric property is just like the symmetric property up above. We're just going to reverse the order. So it says if segment AB is congruent to segment CD, then segment CD is congruent to segment AB. Reversing the order. If angle A is congruent to angle B, then angle B is congruent to angle A. And then the transitive property is that one where we have to make a transfer. If A equals B and B equals C, then A equals C. Same idea, but now we're going to do it with segments. If segment A is congruent to segment CD, and segment CD is congruent to segment EF, then AB is congruent to EF. And then same thing with angles. If angle A is equal to angle B and angle B is equal to angle C, then angle A is congruent to angle C. And again, a lot of these properties are used when we start doing more complicated proofs in geometry, but these are some of the basic ones.